We'll now call the meeting to order. Welcome to today's meeting of March 19th, 2024, meeting of the Salem Planning Commission. Jennifer, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Augustine is absent, excused. Commissioner Fott, absent. Commissioner Heller,
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes, here. Commissioner Slater is absent, excused. Commissioner Tigan,
Here.
Commissioner Truitt,
Here.
Commissioner Villarreal.
Here.
We have quorum.
Are there any interested citizens here like to address the commission on specific agenda items other than hearings? Deliberations or merits of land use issues reviewable by the planning commission. If there are such people, would you please go to the mayor's podium and state your name and address for the record. Each person's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Are there any corrections or comments other than consent calendar items? Would anyone like to make a motion for the approval of the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve this consent calendar.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please signify saying aye when Jennifer calls your name.
Commissioner Heller,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Tigan,
Aye.
Commissioner Truitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Villarreal.
Aye.
Motion passes. We don't have any take her as present, or how do you?
I guess just for the record, Commissioner Fott is here.
Okay, so I don't see any resolutions or action items, so let's go ahead and continue to the public hearing. First of all, I'd like to ask the commissioners if anyone's had an ex parte communication or any conflicts of interest to state that.
I am currently working with Brand Consulting on another project.
Thank you. Jennifer, would you, all right, this is the second hearing of continuance of, let's see what read the case number. Case number CPC-ZC24-01. Would you, Jennifer, would you please read the statement of criteria?
This is a public hearing to consider a minor comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change, case number CPC-ZC 2401, for property located at 650 15th Street Southeast. The criteria applicable to this application are found in Salem Revised Code chapters 64 and 265. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing, the statements or evidence sufficient to afford the planning commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The planning commission will then either continue the public hearing or the record open for at least 7 days.
I believe there were some commissioners that were not physically present at the last public hearing, and so I want to give them the opportunity to say if they watched the video and read all the materials so that they could vote on tonight's decision.
Commissioner Rhodes, I did watch the video and read all the
information sent. I did not watch the video, but I have read the material. I can abstain if that's the preference.
It's kind of been like half of the stuff, so, I think we have enough about you, so we don't need to invite it just to avoid it. Potential problems might be best to extend.
I'd like to call on the planner to begin his presentation.
Evening, Peter Downey, planner two, planning division, city of Salem. I'd like to enter into the record the supplemental staff report in this presentation, as well as the additional DEQ report submitted by the applicant, which you have a copy of. For the continued hearing for comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change case number 24-01. Just to recap, at the planning commission hearing on February 27th, the commission heard the request to make a minor comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change for two properties located at 650 15th Street Southeast and an address lot across on Leslie Street. The properties were previously split zoned IC and IG and were changed to RM2 during our Salem update to the comp plan in 2022. Since a deed restriction was discovered, which prohibits the properties from being developed for residential uses or agricultural uses, the current property owner cannot develop them to the uses allowed in the RM2 zone, and has applied to revert them back to IG zoning. At the previous hearing, the planning commission raised concerns regarding the impacts of potential industrial development to the surrounding residentially zoned area, shown in orange. If the properties were changed back to IG zoning, and planning commission discussed the need for potential mitigation measures for any future development. To address the compatibility with the neighboring residentially zoned properties, staff compiled a list of permitted uses in the proposed IG zone properties to be restricted due to their more impactful nature, such as heavy manufacturing, vehicle sales and services, and waste-related facilities. All of these uses are prohibited under the current RM2 zoning of the properties. Allowed uses would still include some retail sales and services, eating and drinking establishments, general construction and repair services, as well as general wholesaling, housing and distribution, and storage uses, almost all of which are not permitted in the current RM2 zone. Other proposed mitigation measures included requiring any vehicle storage areas to be paved where the IG zone normally does not require that. Any outdoor storage would be required to be screened by a fence or landscaping from the abutting residentially zoned properties where the IG zone does not require screening for storage. And any future development would need to meet a minimum 15% landscaping on site, similar to the IC zone, which one of the properties was previously partially. Should be noted that the property is currently vacant and has been for over a year. As such, it has lost its non-conforming use status in the RM2 zone, and any use on the property would require a minimum class 1 site plan review to establish a new use on the property, and any future development would be reviewed to current development standards of the zone and all other applicable standards of the UDC. Staff recommends the planning commission approve the proposal with the conditions listed in the supplemental staff report. That concludes my presentation.
Are there any questions for staff? Thank you. Now, I'd like the representative for the applicant to go forward and testify. State your name for the record.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay King, with Brand Land Use, I'm the representative of the property owner, who's Robert Bolt. I unfortunately was under the weather at the first public hearing, so I watched it online. But back, full course. Thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to go over some of the items that were brought to the planning commission's attention and some questions that you had at the last public hearing. Again, this is the site with the two large stars there. And just to clarify, the property is not vacant. It has been utilized as warehouse and storage since the property owner purchased it, which was also the previous use. I was made aware of that by the property owner after the public hearing. As stated, there is a DEQ restriction that does not allow for any residential or agricultural uses on the property. This was brought to, this kind of came about because the previous owner had a petroleum with diesel and lead fuel storage tanks buried under the ground. And they did some work with DEQ. DEQ did some testing on the site and essentially said the soils are so contaminated that it's unsuitable for residential use or for agricultural crop, specifically food crop. In the DEQ supplemental information that I sent over to Peter this afternoon, there is some information there with regards to how far the contamination goes down into the soil. In some areas of the property sites, it's down to at least 15 feet. So in order to remediate that, you would have to dredge or dig up at least 15 feet of soils, assuming that after that 15 feet, they tested normal soil levels with no contaminants. That goes all the way out to the creek. So that would probably not be a viable option, considering it's an essential salmon habitat and within a regulatory floodway. One of the items that the planning commission brought up was the floodplain and the floodway, and the implications of any sort of site development on that. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Gonna back up. So the city proposed conditions are within the restricting uses within the IG zone. Now there's 75 roughly uses within that IG zone. The city's restricting 47 of them. This includes the residential restrictions in the DEQ deed restriction. So 63% of the total uses in the IG zone would not be allowed. This leaves, as Peter said, retail, office, things like daycare, etc. City staff stated that the parcel wouldn't have been included in this our Salem update. So why would we impose these harsh restrictions if this wouldn't have been added into the our Salem update in the beginning, had this deed restriction been noticed? To add on to that, in that supplemental information that I sent over, there is a note in there from DEQ that in March of 2002, the city of Salem actually hired an environmental consultant for the site for a proposed school. They work with Salem Kaiser schools. So the city was aware of these contaminants as early as 2002. In that report, it also states that it's unsuitable for things that would allow people to excavate the dirt or the soil. So like a daycare, kids going outside playing in the dirt, that's probably not something that anybody would want their children to play in. And any future development would require permitting, which would mitigate some of those issues, like the floodplain and floodway. There are very strict floodway regulations. It's almost impossible to build in the floodway unless you have an amazing engineer and the right site specifics. I personally am a certified floodplain manager through FEMA, so this is something that I'm extremely familiar with and I dealt with a lot when I was previously at the county. There, as Peter said, there are zone to zone setbacks and landscaping buffers, things like that. Also building and fire safety. So any building permits would have to go through to help make sure that these are properly developed. Again, the contamination of the soils, this involves at least 15 feet of excavation, assuming that the soils stayed on site. They don't necessarily recognize property lines, so this very well could have meandered onto the neighboring properties. There are a few errors, so it's not in this issue, for lack of better terms. The previous property owner erred in not alerting the city of the deed restrictions, and the city erred in changing the zone to a deed restricted designation. These are public record, and it would maybe be, it would have been nice for the city to say, okay, we're changing from an industrial property to a residential property, let's see if there's anything in there that would cause problems. City council has recognized that there is an error by reducing the application fee by 50%. We believe that there's no fault to the current property owner, and they're just trying to fix this problem so that they're not in violation of DEQ and they can utilize their industrial property as they purchased it. Our city comprehensive plan in the economic development and employment section specifically talks about the growth and stability of existing small businesses and how they should be facilitated and expanded upon, and that we should, increase the allowances for those types of small businesses. U.S. Supreme Court has extended the principle beyond the fiscal seizure of property for a taking, and states that the general rule, at least, is that while property may be regulated to a certain extent, if regulation goes too far, it would be recognized as a taking. And we believe that restricting 63% of the property uses is a taking. It is too far. The state looks at these two items highlighted in pink that show reasoning behind it, that the landowner's been denied all economically viable uses, and that the regulation imposes burdens or costs on the landowner that do not bear a reasonable relationship to the impacts of the community. In summary, we believe that as presented without the additional conditions, the city should approve the zone change and comprehensive plan amendment. And we'll stand for any questions.
Questions? You said that the property is currently being used. How is it being used?
There's currently vehicle storage, warehousing. I believe there are offices. There is an office inside. They're not utilizing the outdoor storage, but they are using structures on site.
So as the change outlined in the staff recommendation, would the current uses of the property fall within that? What the staff is recommending for
In those
in
conditions.
condition one, with the current use meet condition one?
Step on that, I'm not entirely sure.
Sound of it sounds, said vehicles would probably be vehicle services and storage, which we did. It's not permitted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm just curious, of the 63% that you say in the uses that aren't available to you now, some of these just seem like maybe heavy vehicle storage, but what other uses here could you anticipate the owner of the property considering its location in a residential neighborhood or a zoned residential neighborhood would be reasonable?
So I can't answer that specifically because I'm not the property owner, but the property owner purchased the parcels with the designation. We're under the impression that the designation was industrial. So they wish to just utilize the property for industrial uses at their leisure, for what it was previously. So because at the previous hearing, we discussed the timelines of when the property owner was purchasing it and our Salem. And so that's where that error, where the seller didn't disclose that the zone was being changed to something that was not industrial. So as much as I wish I could say that I know exactly what the current property owner wishes to do, I don't. But they would like the allowance to utilize it as they purchased it. Thank you, appreciate it.
Is there anyone from the neighborhood association here to testify? All right, so there's no one here from the neighborhood association. Any public testimony?
As long as this gentleman doesn't want to testify, I
don't.
guess we're okay.
Oh, okay. So, do the commissioners have any additional questions for staff?
I'd be curious to know from staff how you went about choosing which uses would be permitted and which uses would not be permitted.
Sure. We compared both what was allowed in the current RM2 zoning with what would be allowed in the IG zone, and that's how we structured the list. A lot of it was based off of the previous case, Turner Road, where there was a lot of similar IG zone abutting residential zone. And mostly we looked at what industrial uses we considered to be more impactful with regards to noise, traffic, pollution, kind of.
So I'm sorry, could you refresh my memory of what is currently being stored and done on the property?
Currently, there is vehicle storage and warehousing storage.
So the storage is, it's not commercial parking because it's not a public parking lot. It's a tenant who is, or is it the owner's equipment that's parked there?
My understanding is it's the owner's equipment.
Okay. So they wouldn't necessarily, according to the list, they wouldn't necessarily be precluded from executing the lease and storing vehicles or commercial equipment, so long as it wasn't commercial parking. They could still generate potentially revenue out of leasing the property out for storage of industrial equipment. So long as they're not doing sales or service or heavy vehicle trailer sales, service and, let's see, heavy vehicle and trailer service and storage. So it could potentially be leased for equipment, storage, and material parking, as I read this. Is that, disagree with that?
Maybe the staff answer that.
I guess where this is coming from is I sympathize on both levels. I understand that the owner is between a rock and a hard place, and that the city also has concerns of the community and the neighborhood to uphold. And so working within the condition 1 of the recommended not permitted uses, how do you still use this as a industrial type of site? And if they're, lost track of where I was going with that, but if they're still able to generate a use out of it while being in compliance, then it might accomplish both needs, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Gather my thoughts for a second.
Okay, all right. think the staff wants to add to that?
Olivia Diaz, I'm filling in for Lisa, planning administrator. So I guess I would add is every one of these has like a bunch of different categories of what is in there. So heavy vehicle storage wouldn't be just your pickup truck stored. I think it would be helpful if we knew what the equipment was for, because based off of what the equipment is for, that would probably fall into a use. So it's difficult to pinpoint what use they would fit under without knowing what the equipment is that's being stored. If it's just vehicles, vehicle services would be the storage, so that it wouldn't be allowed under the condition as proposed. Again, planning commission could edit this. There are some uses that are allowed, wholesaling, warehousing, that are going to continue to be allowed, and those are pretty low impact. Again, without knowing what's in there in particular, it's hard to fit it into the box in the code. That's unhelpful.
No, look, I opened this rabbit hole, I don't know where it's going, but, I guess where I'm coming from is in my daily course of action, when I see an NFA, it's a double-edged sword. It's a relief that there is DEQ oversight, but it's also a red flag. There is some sort of known issue. So how do we work with the property owner around this issue of what is known to accomplish what is best for the community as well as what is best for the property owner? And as I look through the list, I'm thinking, okay, what can they do here? Well, it appears that a sizable chunk, I guess a percentage, 63% has been eliminated. I think we can eliminate some, but I'd like to see it maybe a little bit less than that, because manufacturing, for example, if you're gonna manufacture shelters, you're gonna store them outside. Is that general manufacturing or is that light manufacturing?
Excuse me, I think that, are you just expressing your opinion, or because that's what we talk about afterwards? Do you have questions specifically for the applicant or the staff? Because I think what you're talking about is very interesting. I'd like to hear more.
I can hold
Okay.
by my tongue and tell them.
Okay, all right. If there are no more questions for the applicant or the staff, or requested, do you have?
I just have a question to clarify. I cannot speak to this at all. Is that correct? Or ask questions?
I think you can be involved in the discussion. I think you can be involved in the discussion and ask questions. It might potentially cause problems if you actually vote, but I think it's okay if you raise issues for folks to discuss.
Do you have any questions? Okay. Yes, okay, so are there any more questions? For anybody? Okay, then,
I have one question.
oh,
Sorry,
please go ahead.
a little late to the game.
No,
So the 63% is calculated basically as the number of uses eliminated as compared to the number of uses. Which seems like a big number, and it is. But do we have any idea of, in terms of the industry that's in Salem, what percentage that would be, instead of just saying there's a list of 100 things and there's 63 you can't do? If 60 of those things are things we never do anyways, that doesn't seem like a big loss. So are these uses that we're blocking here, are they things that happen around here a lot? Or are they pretty infrequent uses? Because I guess to me, if they're infrequent uses, I'm not really concerned how many infrequent uses we're blocking. But if they are things that get utilized around here frequently, that does seem very serious. And so curious if we have any idea we could like weight these.
I don't have that kind of information on hand right now. I could probably check with our long range planners what amount of land that's designated for uses, but how many actual uses are established? And we could provide the other.
I mean, I don't think we have the data to support that. There are some things on here I've never seen come through in the 9 years I've been here. Maybe a handful of them. I mean, there's not very much surface mining in Salem besides the things that have been existing. You know, we don't do a lot of waste related facilities. Marine facilities are few and far between. But a lot of these I think that there are things on here that come in routinely. You know, the aviation facilities, I would imagine would only be around the airport, but that's not to say it couldn't happen. And then industrial services and cleaning plants, I've never seen, so that's just my tenure here, what I've seen come through, but the rest of them I've seen at least once.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, is there no request to hold this record? Then I will close the public hearing. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, now let's have discussion. Oh, there's no public testimony. Oh, good. Any discussion?
I'll speak in favor of the motion at least. You know, when we met last month, I think we were given the story of a very encumbered property. The sort of degradation, the environmental status of the property was known to the property owner. We were also told whoever the property owner was at the time was properly noticed that the entire city was going through a comprehensive plan change. They were noticed that their property was going to be rezoned. They had plenty of opportunity to respond to that and let the city know that there was a deed restriction. I believe we also heard that the city never heard from the property owner. And so we're at a place where the property owner can't use their property and they've asked for a zone change in order to use the property. And I think the conversation was last month that we'd like to see some restrictions that respected the fact that the entire neighborhood had been rezoned. And for this to be dialed back, it would need some response. I made the motion to adopt the staff report because I think they've done the work of putting in the restrictions that we thought made sense. Considering the property owner wanting to continue to use the property as an industrial site. And the potential at some point that most of the land around it would turn into residential areas. You know, I'm just kind of restating for the record what we've been through, but I feel like this is it's sort of a 50-50 split.
Does anybody else have any?
For the record, this is Jordan. I think that was pretty well put, Paul. I'm not really in favor of this level of restriction, but given the amount of due diligence that goes into buying and purchasing and transacting and developing the property, there should be a certain level of notice or investigation that goes into uncovering an NFA, as well as deed restrictions, zoning changes that are proposed. So I think because of that, the restrictions are a pretty good compromise, all things considered. So yeah, be in favor.
Are there any other commissioners who took into discussion?
I think, one area that I'm a little concerned about is the current use of the property.
it sounds like might be on this list, which would eliminate the, verifiability of their income that they're currently making on that property, so just maybe there could be maybe one or two modifications to this list to kind of grandfather the current use.
Did it, I think it said in the staff report, it's been vacant for a year, is that the case?
That's what was entered into the record at the last public hearing. And then we went back and we haven't found any permits, so non-conforming status expires after 1 year. So that was just what was on the record and lack of supporting documentation for evidence that it was being used.
So I assume now it's being used by the, I think I asked this question earlier, being used by the owner, their personal equipment.
Anybody? Shall we vote?
I'd like to continue the conversation. I do want to take a hard look, considering what we heard from the applicant at the restrictions. I think that the city's done a good job of identifying uses that don't make sense. If you were to think of what an RM2 build out would look like. I don't think you'd want to do, well, aviation facilities, okay, that doesn't make sense. You can't do agriculture, that's many of the restrictions, the 63% of the restrictions are in the deed itself. People can't live there. We've already had some fuel issues, so maybe not fuel dealers, probably not petroleum and natural gas production. Okay, so I think a lot of the 63% are uses you wouldn't do anyway. When I think about what our Salem style RM2 neighborhood could look like 20 years from now, I do think that there could be use for commercial parking in this area. That they could offer a surface parking lot with EV chargers or something like that. If you have a whole bunch of RM2 style apartments that don't have parking associated with them. That would meet the intent of capping the site with asphalt and everything else that the city wants to not disturb the contamination. And it could be useful and still, I think within reason could be a good change. So I think of all the ones that I see here, commercial parking is one that I would consider striking.
Anybody else?
I find that pretty persuasive. I think that seems pretty fair. It's, again, I mean, I guess to my point that I was trying to make, just what uses are they planning to do? And so I guess I was kind of hoping to hear from the applicant, they were hoping to do in space. Obviously, they're not obligated to do that, but without that information, just trying to fit this within our vision of what RM2 would be and preventing uses that would be detrimental to that. So I'd like to see here, and so I would support a lot.
From our city attorney.
Well, no, that you can definitely do that. Just like, I guess the proper way to do that would be if you decide we want to either add or subtract some of these the uses that are in the condition one, we can amend your motion to adopt the staff board with those changes to the list of restrictions. Either add or subtract. So that would be the formal way to do it. I don't want to jump the gun if you guys have decided that yet or not, but if you do, that is the list that you can do it. That's what to do.
All right, I'll make a motion to amend my motion and adopt. So the substitute motion is adopt the staff report striking commercial parking from the condition one list.
Second,
Yeah, I'll second that.
thank you. Jennifer, you call the roll or we? Oh, there any discussion on that?
Yeah, we can discuss it further.
Yeah,
So to clarify, commercial parking would then be permitted.
Commissioner Heller,
No.
Commissioner Rhodes. Aye. Commissioner Tigan.
Aye.
Commissioner Truitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayor Rendell.
Aye.
So the motion passes, where are we now? So we're voting on the motion, right? We already did that, right? Okay, so. Motion passes, okay.
Staff will prepare the order and
Okay.
send out the decision.
Great, thank you. Are there any, oh. Are there any, special orders of business? No. Are there any staff information reports or subcommittees? Staff report?
I don't have much. Lisa's on her way to Japan as we speak, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot, as a planning administrator report should give me anything. I know you guys have some upcoming presentations that she's trying to schedule with URAs, both by. I think that you're gonna have a resolution for initiation of code amendment coming soon. That's on the agenda.
Thank you. Any subcommittee reports? Planning administrators report. Any comments for the good of the order?
Did we hear anything about our April 2nd meeting?
No, no one's gonna be in the agenda items. I think I gave you guys the deadline of next Monday, but, it's probably most likely gonna be canceled. Unless something comes up between now and next Monday.
Are there any, excuse me,
Sorry, I'll send out an email, next Monday, just to let you know for sure.
is there any public comment? That would like, that a member of the public would like to address the planning commission? Yeah, all right, so,